In today's episode, we're going to talk about this PRS DGT SE model and why I think this is a fantastic way of adding humbucker and vibrato sounds to you fellow Telecaster fanatics. Also, I'm going to talk about why I have regretted not buying a DGT for the last 17 years. Well, hello friends, and welcome to Ask Zach. Today we are going to take a look at this PRS DGT SE model, and I'm sure you're surprised to not see a Telecaster in my hands, and I am a Telecaster guy, but there are times where you need a humbucker guitar and one with a vibrato. So PRS was kind enough to send me this after some long back and forth, which I'll talk about in a minute. And yeah, I just think this is an incredible bang for your buck instrument and a great way to add humbucker and vibrato sounds to your arsenal. First off, of course, need to thank my Patreon members and everyone that's ever hit the thumbs up or bought a t-shirt or done tip jar, super thanks, all those things. I'm so appreciative of that. And if you want to find out more about Patreon, you can look in the description. All right, let's dive in. So this all started a couple of months ago. Eric at PRS Guitars reached out to me, and it was because I had done a video with one of their NF53 guitars, and it was something where they didn't send it to me. It was actually one of my Patreon members, Jesse. So thanks, Jesse. He sent me the guitar to check out, and I thought it was really cool. And so I just thought, well, I'll do a video with it. And I just gave kind of my honest, feedback on it, where I felt like it was a great Telecaster type guitar for, kind of PRS or Gibson guys, because it was kind of a hybrid, but it had really cool features. And like every PRS, it's just made impeccably. Well, Eric reached out to me with PRS, and he asked me, he said, well, these are some of our new models and such. And, would you like to, we could loan you one of them, check it out, maybe do a video with it. And I looked at them and I really wasn't interested. And what came to my mind was, I remembered they had introduced a SE model of the DGT, of the David Grissom tremolo model. And the SEs are, really high quality Indonesian made instrument, and sometimes they're versions of the core models or what have you. So I knew they had done an SE model of the DGT, and I'd heard that it was really good, and I have regretted not buying a DGT for at least 17 years, and I'll tell more about that in a second. And so I just said, okay, look, how about you just send me a DGT SE to have? And, I just kind of threw it out like that because it was something that, I knew that if it was good, I'd actually want to keep it and own it. And so he said, let me get back with you. And I said, one caveat is that I do not like heavy guitars. And I said, it needs to be under 8 pounds, preferably under 7.5 pounds. I really like 6.5 to 7.5 pounds. I know that's on the light side. And he said, so he came back and he said, no problem. We can send you the instrument. And most of them have been light. They've been in the lower to upper 7-pound range. So he sent it to me, and it showed up. And of course, like every PRS that I've ever checked out, it was impeccably made. amazing fit and finish. You know, the action, the setup, sounded great. I did minimal tweaking to the instrument. Let's see, what did I do? It was mainly with pickup height. So I ended up having to raise the pickups on the bass side and raise the pull pieces on the bass side a little bit to get it to where it was even for my setup. Then, after a while, it came with 10s on it, and the core model comes with 11s. And that's the way I had played the guitar in the past, was always the core models, in the last 15 or so years. And so I just decided, well, I'm going to put 11s on there. So I got a set of 11s, slapped them on here, and luckily the only thing, I didn't have to adjust the truss rod. I just had to, of course, take this plate off and tighten the claw a little bit, because I wanted the vibrato, the bottom of it, I wanted it to be parallel, with the top of the guitar. And because I do want it to be floating, because that's, part of the sound and everything. And so I was just blown away by how great it was. And of course the price point, this is April 2025, and there's some, craziness going on there, but it's in like the $800-900 range street price right now. And then of course, used, they're in the $600 to $700 range. And I was blown away by it. And so one of the things that I told Eric when I said I'll do a video with a PRS guitar is, I told him, I said, look, I'm a Telecaster guy. I'm a hardcore Telecaster guy. That's what I'm going to play the majority of the time. However, I only own one humbucker guitar, and I don't really use it. And it's a Les Paul. And I guess now we'll kind of go into, my regret over the last 17 years of not getting a DGT back then. So, but anyway, so I explained that to Eric, and I said, that's the kind of the gist of the video, is that this is a really great guitar for a Tele or some other type of player to add really great humbucker and, vibrato sounds. And of course it also has a pull tap, and it does really good single coil sounds. So this is just a great way of adding additional tones for a single coil kind of player, especially a Telecaster guy. So let's go back to 2007, 2008, when the DGT was released. So at that point, I just started working for True Tone. Of course, at the time it was called Visual Sound, and didn't have a ton of money. Was just kind of, I was getting off the road and working for Bob, and I'd saved up some money, and I wanted a humbucker guitar, and PRS released the DGT model. Again, this is 2007, 2008. And I went to the NAMM show in January and checked the DGT out in the PRS booth. And then we borrowed one to use in our booth. And so I was kind of doing the demos of our pedals and such, back when Visual Sound was doing a lot of pedals like the Jekyll and Hyde H2O. And we had a full line of stuff, the Double Trouble, all sorts of things, Angry Fuzz. And so I was doing demos in the booth with the DGT. So for basically 4 days straight, I played a brand new DGT. And I just thought, this thing is amazing. It's fantastic. And PRS guys are, all the guys working for them are fantastic. Paul Reed Smith is amazing. And I thought, I finally found a PRS guitar that I like. And it's a really cool humbucker guitar. I feel comfortable with it, because I really have a problem with, and I'm not trying to slag on Gibson, and I have a lot of friends working for Gibson, but Gibson guitars I just don't get along with them. And it has to do with, okay, here I'm going to pull out a Gibson. This is my only Gibson, and it's one that I have owned since 2008. So this is a 2008 R9. So it's a 59 reissue Les Paul that I handpicked from the custom shop, which was via the help of some really nice friends that I don't think any of them work for Gibson anymore. Of course, that was 17, 18 years ago. And so what I don't like about Gibsons is I don't like the headstock angle. I don't like the neck to body angle. I don't like the carved top. I don't like the raised tunematic. And I don't like the separate bridge. And it's because it feels like your hand is kind of too far away from the body itself. And it's kind of like you have your hand and you have the guitar, and then it just doesn't get along. So here I am playing a DGT 4 days in a row. DGT. Look, the top is almost flat, just has a little bit of carve to it. You know, you have basically a heavy duty version of a Strat bridge that's been, amazingly upgraded, and it's got, big nice saddles on it and a lot of mass. And then you don't have the severe neck angle, you don't have the severe body, in fact, you have almost no angle going from, body to neck at the joint. And so I just really loved the guitar. And so at the time, there was a guy named Jay Hayes that I think he's working for St. Louis Music now. But at the time, Jay Hayes was kind of like a product specialist. And you might remember him because he was the bald guy. I hate saying that. He's the tall, bald individual that did some of the earliest demos for the DGT guitars, and you would see him at different events and such, trade shows. So I talked to Jay Hayes, and I said, what are the chances of getting an industry accommodation sale on a brand new DGT? And he said, let me check. He said, I'll get back with you. So he came back and he said, yeah, we can get you a gold top DGT with the, moon inlays and, for such and such a price. And it was a great price. I mean, it was a killer price. And I was just about to pull the trigger, but I needed to get home. And of course, before I made any kind of purchase, I needed to talk to my wife and just kind of think about it for a little bit. So I went home, and now remember, I had just gotten off the road. I'd been mainly a guitar tech. But what happened is that Paul Reed Smith was launching the DGT back then. And one of the things they do is that they will do product placement with guitar players that are high profile and that are appearing on television a lot. Now they'll do more with influencers and things like that. But basically, the majority of my friends that were like Sean Tubbs, that was playing with Carrie Underwood at the time, Gary Hooker playing with Brad, J.D. Simo, that at the time, was playing with the Don Kelly band downtown at Roberts. Lou Toomey, that was playing with Brooks and Dunn, still plays with Brooks and Dunn. All these friends of mine got free or nearly free instruments. And I got jealous, because, I wasn't them. I wasn't playing with a big artist, but here were all my friends that got basically free instruments. Maybe some of them were loaners and they had to give them back. I'm not sure. But I basically let my ego get the best of me, and I decided that I was going to pay over double the price for an instrument that I knew that wasn't going to be done that way. And that was how I ended up with this 2008 R9. So even though I got an industry accommodation price on this thing, it's a great guitar, but I don't play it. The reason I bought this instrument was because I knew Gibson wasn't going to give away these to people. They would give away lesser models and such, but, so I ended up paying twice as much money, even at industry accommodation / artist price, and bought this thing and have owned it for the last 17, 18 years. So immediately I, regretted it. And I did a bunch of things to it, like I put some different pickups in it and such, but it's a Les Paul. And I just don't like Les Pauls. I like 335s better, but it's like this instrument just doesn't work for me. It's just not my kind of guitar. And so every time I pick up a DGT, it would feel like a hybrid instrument, because it is. It kind of has Fendery elements where it has a little bit more of a Fendery, scale length. Again, it has, a flatter top, and it has, it doesn't have this bulk coming up above the body and making where it feels like your hand is so far away from the body. Yeah, they just felt at home to me, and to the point of I felt like, well, even if I took a Tele, you know, I could still, let's turn this turn the echo down a touch. Or then you could even go, you know, single coil mode if you really wanted to get, you know, more, you know, twangy. So, you know, because let's say I went on a gig and I took a Telecaster and a Les Paul. Well, if I broke a string on the Telecaster, you know, I'd be mad the rest of the night having to play a Les Paul. But if I took a DGT, you know, as my other instrument with the Telecaster, then it's like if I broke a string on the Tele and had to play this the rest of the night, you know, I'd be fine. You know, there might be times where like, I kind of wish it was a Tele, but then you'd play like more of a rock tune or a ballad or something where you wanted that fatter sound and a more overdriven sound at times, and, you know, would have been, you know, ecstatic. So it was interesting, yeah, when PRS came around, when Eric with PRS and asked me, and that's why I immediately said, you know, the SE DGT, because I just felt like this is an incredible bang for your buck guitar that, you know, and it's a way of adding something different, because I have like way too many Telecasters, and this is something that's different that I would actually play. Because if you gave me like a Gretsch or a 335 or all sorts of other things, you know, maybe I could use it on a song or two, but I mean, this is an instrument, you know, I could actually gig with. Now, am I going to play the Telecaster more? Absolutely. But this is really a great alternate. And I think a lot of it has to do with Grissom himself, because, you know, I grew up watching him on Austin City Limits, you know, in the 80s, watching him play with Joe Ely and, you know, McMurtry and other cats. And, you know, sometimes he'd play a Tele or an Esquire or different things like that. And you can kind of feel in this instrument that, you know, that Grissom understands the Telecaster thing and likes Telecasters. And so this is just a great hybrid instrument. And also, I love the fact that Grissom always says, this is the business end of a guitar. Because it is. The bridge pickup is the business end. And that's, you know, what needs to be magical. And that's where I'm going to live most of the time. And that's where he lives most of the time. So there you have it. So yeah, all I did was I put 11s on it and changed the pickup height a little bit. It's great. Comes with a gig bag, inexpensive. I used my deluxe reverb today. It has a WGS ET65 speaker, and then I for that opening thing I used an RC booster just to give it a touch of hair, and then I have this Delverb that from UA that I was using to get some delay, and here's kind of the sound that I was doing on the at the beginning of the piece. And one of the things I really like is the fact that you got a master tone, you got a three-way switch, then you have, you know, the volume for the neck, volume for the bridge. And I love that this is right here. And if you just roll back the neck just a little bit, you get, you know, really great sound. And then, you know, again, single coil sounds. Another great trick that probably a lot of y'all are aware of is the fact that you can run the volume, you know, you can have both pickups on, and you can run the volume all the way up on the neck, and then that allows you to do some really cool legato kind of, or no, faster than that, you know. Where basically you just have to turn this one volume control just a little bit, and it swells up real fast. And that's kind of a fun thing, instead of, because if you didn't do that, you'd have to move the volume control a lot more. You'd have, versus just, so a little trick that probably most of y'all might have known already. I picked it up from Phil Keggy back in the 80s or something. I saw that he would do a Les Paul, or I think he had a Yamaha 335. But all right, so thanks to PRS for this SE DGT. Thanks to Eric and all the cats. And yeah, we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.